Welcome to Boss Academy Radio. I'm your host, Paul Kirch, and I want to thank you for tuning in. As you know, BOSS stands for Business Ownership Success Strategies. That's what we're all about. They're here to help the entrepreneur, the small business owner, help them find success. We're providing real strategies that you can leverage. That's coming through our great guests that we have on, our expert network, and you can find it all out at bossacademy.com. Or if you're a fan of iTunes, go out to iTunes. You know what? While you're out there, give us some nice feedback. That feedback helps us measure how we're doing. Are we providing you the kind of information that really makes an impact? Speaking of making an impact, our guest today, Emma Rigby, she founded an amazing company that really grew out of, I guess we're going to say it grew out of adversity. It grew out of a really challenging time. And it's a company called Love Your Doorstep. And the thing I love about this is such a socially responsible company, but it's interesting how it blossomed. It came out of a time where Emma faced a real challenge. The London riots were going on, and she saw just such a breakdown, and there was so much fear going on. She was able to unite her neighbors, friends, and a community through Love Your Doorstep, and it's such a great initiative. Emma, welcome to Boss Academy Radio.
Paul, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a little bit of a challenge for us to connect. Obviously, you are in the UK, I'm here in the States, and we had some technical issues, but we are live now, and I'm super excited to have you here. Tell me a little bit about this whole journey, how this all started.
Right, well, I think you mentioned it yourself. Love Your Doorstep came out of the London riots. I'm from New Zealand. I've lived in London for 12 years. I'm a mum of two. And when the riots hit London, I'm based in Enfield. It was a really terrible time. And I said to my husband, I'm moving back to New Zealand. There's no way I want to bring my children up here. That wasn't possible at that point. So I thought, well, if we can't move right now, I'm going to try and change this. The night that the riots hit, it was so unsettling. We had masked men running past our doors. And at that point, I thought, I don't even know who my neighbours are. So if I really was in trouble, who would I actually call on if I needed help? So off the back of those riots, I set up a Facebook group. And at that point, that Facebook group was just a series of postcodes just to start sharing information with the local people around me. And following that Facebook group being set up, it just spread like wildfire. Local people were joining their local friends, and people started sharing all sorts of information on there. And within weeks, it had made a big impact on our local community.
I think that's such a great story. I actually had a personal experience with Hurricane Katrina. I was working with a company based in New Orleans. In fact, the day I was supposed to start was the day that Hurricane Katrina flooded the city. And it was such a crazy time. Now, I was not displaced. I was living in Seattle, so I didn't face a lot of the challenges those people did. But I can kind of relate to your story because it's in those moments of just, I guess, real breakdown, society breakdown or cultural breakdown, where you don't realize how unprepared you are until that happens.
Agreed.
So talk a little bit about, some of those, like in your initial reaction was I'm moving back to New Zealand, and I get that, but what did you do in those moments? I mean, what was your first, like, oh my God, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I think at that point, my parents were staying, actually. They'd come over from New Zealand to spend some time with us on their way to DC over in the States. And I had them in my ear as well saying, what are you doing here? Like, if this country breaks down within 3 days, all the food will be gone in the supermarkets. You will not have a hope to get out of London. But I suppose it took me back to me being brought up in New Zealand and what a community environment I was brought up in. And I thought there's got to be a way to bring this to London. And what better time to do that than off the back of something that was so negative. So the whole concept behind Love Your Doorstep is about passing that cup of sugar over the garden fence, but in a virtual world. So Love Your Doorstep is very much done online. We also meet face-to-face because we live in the same community. I realised at that point lives had got so busy And people wanted to be involved in their community, but they didn't have that time anymore to go and sit in church halls and hear about public meetings and be involved with the, with local things going on. So social media has been the perfect way to bring people back into the local community, and get them involved.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because we think about social media as this tool for you think about Facebook. It's like we're going to share some pictures of our family and all these things, but you don't think about the real power of social media and the ability to really connect people at times like that. And now, I mean, I think about when I lived in San Francisco. San Francisco, always the fear of earthquakes was always there. I've never lived anywhere where I had we called it a bug out kit. It had
Mm-hmm.
some food supply and some emergency supplies that we had. It was in a bag that was ready to grab at any moment's notice. We had evacuation plans. We had meeting places. And, I grew up in a small town in the Midwest of the United States. And I, the idea of having this kind of emergency earthquake plan just didn't exist. And, social media didn't exist when I was living there. But I think about, man, how powerful would that be? Because if you do get displaced, you could just connect a message out on Facebook and say, hey, I'm here, or I made it to the park. Where are you? And that stuff, you don't even think about that until you're going through those times. When did you
Yeah.
know this was a business?
When did I what? Sorry, Paul?
When did you know this was a business opportunity? When did you know that, hey, you had something here that was really valuable?
Within about 3 weeks of setting this up, I think maybe subconsciously prior to setting this up, I saw a real gap in the market because the high streets in the UK are dying. I don't know if it's the same in the United States, but independent shops are going out of business. We've got boarded up shops. The big the big parks outside of the towns are being set up with the large brands, and people are driving to those. So I thought there's got to be a way that I can connect local people to local businesses. And again, as lives were busy, it was easier to shop on Amazon or easier to shop online because things would turn up straight to your door. What we then did was we started building a website, which is loveyourdoorstep.co.uk. And that website has a business directory. Now, lots of websites out there have business directories, but the difference between our website and others is we drive people from our social media platforms directly to those businesses' pages on our website. So 3 years down the track after setting Love Your Doorstep up, we now support over 750 local businesses. Anything from a cake maker to I need a venue for a 60th birthday to I need my car MOT'd. Anything the community needs, they come to Love Your Doorstep and they ask us. And then we send the community to those local business pages on our directory, and they get to look at the local businesses and then make an informed decision about who they want to use.
Yeah, it's a unique model. It's not really like I mean, there are other models out there that kind of are similar, but I think where you have such a unique advantage here, and I think anybody who's an entrepreneur that can think in these terms is you found a way of addressing one of those, I guess, inherent needs that we all have, and that's security and just knowing that we're safe. And anybody that lived through the riots or lived through Hurricane Katrina or lived through an earthquake knows what it's like to feel like you are extremely vulnerable.
Mm.
And I think that's the power here, is that you've addressed that human need of security. So um, when you started this, were people quick to embrace it, or was it kind of like you had to be a real champion of this and explain what you were doing? How quickly were people really on board with this idea?
I think people were very quick to embrace it, but I also think my passion and the belief I had in this helped with all of that. And within 6 months of starting a Facebook group to building the website, I had over 60 local businesses already believing in me and coming on board. And some of those businesses have been with us from day one. and they now get 60 to 70% of their business through Love Your Doorstep. So it's really phenomenal that I've managed to create a business and community platform to work together in harmony. Um, yeah, it's been challenging as setting up any business would be, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, the people I've met and the businesses and local people we've helped has carried us through in setting this business up.
Yeah, I think that's such a great story, great concept, and I love what you're doing there. I mean, I think there's so much value in just this whole lesson of what you learned through this whole process. And I think about your concept. My first thought would have been, okay, she went out and rallied all these people behind you, but it sounds like you went with the companies first because that's where the real bread and butter was. Those were the people that really were going to be ultimately driving this from a business perspective, providing the value to the audience, and then the audience followed. Is that kind of the path you went down?
It is, but it's slightly different in the sense, and this is what I explain to local businesses when they come on board and become Love Your Doorstep businesses, is we actually build from the community up. So we've got the community, and one of our biggest jobs is to keep building that community so more and more people see that local business. So when you've got such a large audience, local businesses come on board with us, and we see results. So it's not hard selling, it's actually involving yourself in the community. Can I give you a quick example?
Please.
Yeah, one of our plumbers came to me and he said, I'm not getting any business from Love Your Doorstep. And I said to him, that's because all you're doing is posting about your business. I said, you live here in this local community. There's got to be a way that you can share with us more than just your business. So he went to a local supermarket and he took a photo of Pampers diapers, Pampers nappies, and they were on the shelf at half price. He posted about this and all the women went crazy. They're, oh, what a lovely man. And everyone knew this man and started using him as their plumber. It's not just about posting about your business, it's about helping each other. And lots of local women saw that man post about diapers and they remembered him as the local plumber. So it's
Well, I
quite,
also
yeah.
think the takeaway there is that okay, it's like sales. The old idea of always be closing that aggressive sale, it alienates so many people today. Buyers are much more educated. They have the ability to really understand when they're being pitched. And if we find ways to connect on a personal level and build relationships first, earn trust, we can create loyal clients very easily from that. And I think that's exactly what that story relates to. And anybody out there building a business, if you don't think in those terms today, in this day and age we live in, when they have the ability to go to a competitor so quickly and research that competitor, if we don't find a way of connecting on a human level, we're not necessarily going to be their first choice. If we're the person they like, and they've connected with us and they see value in what we're providing, that plumber will never go hungry with that mindset.
I
I think that's
agree.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Very much so, and it is very much about building those relationships, and that's how we've started, and that's why we've still got 3.5 years later, such a loyal following. I mean, people are coming to Love Your Doorstep to find out about local products and services before they're going to Google. So we're so tiny, but watch out, Google. I'm only joking. But we are really tiny, but it's made an impact. And hyper local, as we call it, is the way to go. It's really man heavy, but we've got a large team and it's busy. But you need those local people on the ground to make a model like this sustainable.
Well, you're talking local, but I mean, this is really a hyper local opportunity, or really an opportunity where you've got such room for expansion. In fact, you already have started to expand. Let's talk a
Mm.
little bit about where you're taking Love Your Doorstep.
Sure. So we've taken it to two neighbouring boroughs here in London. So we're now in Barnet and another place called Potter's Bar. And we launched it in Cambridge in July of this year. Same concept, slightly different branding to fit in with the area. But again, local people on the ground in those areas are the people running those small businesses. So we're still really small. I can see Love Your Doorstep going nationally and internationally. It could fit into so many different communities, cultures,
Right.
countries. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment.
Well, good for you. Congratulations on all the success. I know it came out of a tough time and some hard lessons learned along that path, but I think it's amazing what you've done, and I think it's amazing how many people are benefiting from this. So, Emma Rigby, once again, thanks for being on Boss Academy Radio. How can people learn more about you and connect?
Great. So on Twitter, you can follow me at Love You Are Doorstep, or at Emma LYDS. Or our website is loveyourdoorstep.co.uk. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again, Emma. Take care and have an amazing day.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Great job.